Can you folks hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, cool. Well, I thought I would mention, unless anyone else has some updates, sort of one of the motivations of the proof theory side of Ladle that's directly connected to our chain, that's separate from some of the other things that we've talked about, and that has to do with sharding. Just want to develop some terminology here. There's what we might call tight sharding and loose sharding. And this has to do with the trust relationship between shards. It's quite possible for a shard to, all the participants in a shard to collude to do double spend on the other shards. So that's a serious trust issue. And there are effectively two ways that we've thought about in our chain to deal with this. One is loose sharding, where you organize the shards in a tree, and the parent-child relationship is one of taking the staking token of the parent shard and using that as backing for the staking token of the child shard. So there you have a double-sided contract between the two shards that sets up the essentially a kind of security relationship between the two. So if there's any funny business going on, the parent is essentially watching over the child. So there's a kind of motivation to for security to go up the tree, and there's a motivation for speed to go down the tree. So by up the tree, I mean towards the root. So if you have stake higher and higher up the tree, then you're guaranteed that you know that there's more security in the tree. That you have visibility on that security, you as a validator. If you want speed, then you put stake further down the tree because there's less validation that has to occur effectively per transaction. Does that make sense? Just make sure that people understand this idea.
Yeah. May I ask if the state of child shard is the part of the parent? Is
part of what?
Of the parent.
Not really. The parent is concerned with state that crosses two child shards. But apart from that, the state of the shard is not part of the parent shard. It's just that the transactions are validated. The parent is involved in some of the validation of the transactions. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So communication between two child shards are done via parent.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
So it's kind of up and over. And so that's sorry. So that's one kind of sharding, and another kind of sharding, which that's kind of loose, right? So you can think of mounting a child shard as like mounting a file system in Unix. So you can kind of dynamically build up and tear down this tree. So that's
these shards would have independent state, or no?
They don't. You can think of it. There's some chunks that are independent, and there's some chunks that are entangled.
So
Any state that goes up and over.
there's channels on one shard that aren't on the other, or how does that work?
That's correct. On child shards, there'll be channels that are on one child that are not in the other, and there'll be channels in the parent that are not in the child.
So we need some way of distinguishing, I guess, local names and remote names, or
Yeah, that's old technology. That's nothing fancy about that. URIs is just fine for that, and the tree structure of URIs is perfectly suited to that. But the tight sharding is one where you are able to verify the transactions without having to do the full recompute, right? So when two shards make contact, they don't have to go all the way back to the history, the genesis block or last finalized block of another shard. Does that make sense? So somehow they have some verification mechanism that's faster than compute. Just, running through all the transactions from the last finalized block. Does that make sense?
Yeah. This part is interesting.
Yeah, exactly. What's that?
Were you saying possible? I mean,
Well, that's the high dollar question is it possible, right? So far in the literature, that's been quite a challenge to come up with something that does that. And so now the point of the proof theory is that now it gives us a proof mechanism whereby we can verify transactions. And in particular, if you'll note, the proof mechanism specifically keeps track of the resources that are used as a part of the proof. So this is it's kind of a happy act. I would dearly love to be able to say, this was intended in the design all along. We knew that this use of context, sort of enabling catalyst context, was related to or smelled like blockchain-like things. And we made this point in our 2015 paper, but it did not occur to me that we might be able to utilize this mechanism as a part of the verification of computations for sharding, sort of fast verification of computations. But in the last few months, I've become more and more convinced that we have a mechanism to verify computations without having to do full replay of the computations. You just have to check certain kinds of properties. And those properties have to do with whether or not the states that you get to are reachable in a more abstract sense than just symbolically running the computation. I'd like to be able to give you more details this morning, but I'm still working them out. But essentially, this is the line of research that I've been pursuing now for a couple of months.
this is
Go ahead.
This is something similar to the ZK snarks?
No, I mean, it's similar in spirit, but it's a different computation entirely.
Right, but it's testing logic. It's really type checking. It's doing more than that.
No, it's theorem proving is what it is.
Yeah.
So it's because we have type assignments for all the terms, and we only ever use well-typed terms. So it's related to type checking, but it's theorem proving. So we use a theorem prover to check the validity of a particular state. So that's the idea. And I'm, one step at a time. Mike and I are still checking out how to do negation. So that's making good progress. But the fact is that with the negation, I feel very confident that we get the negation in the next few days. But with the proof stuff, it looks extremely promising that we can construct proofs of state without having to do the full computation. There are some edge cases that I have to consider, which is why I'm not ready to trot out the calculations. But the reason I'm talking about this today is this is another sort of very significant motivation for wanting to do the proof theory, because if we can have these proofs without having to do the full computation, we win, right? Because now we can get tight sharding, which is a far more interesting form of sharding, in my opinion. And the two don't have to be exclusive. You can have both loose sharding and tight sharding. I also want to mention that in the case of loose sharding or tight sharding, you have this you don't know the identity of validators, right? You don't know that some party isn't masquerading as multiple parties. And we've tried to set it up so that the incentives, the economic incentives, are such that there's there's a balance point between putting all your eggs in one basket and not having and hiding yourself as a million different validators, right? So those are the two ends of the spectrum, right? Where each validator puts their entire stake into a single node. So that's not good from a risk perspective, right? Because a node can go down, and can go down for lots of different reasons that are outside of the validator's control. So they kind of want to spread their stake over some number of nodes, which will give them effectively multiple identities, which is not good for the security of the network, right? And in particular, the threat model for a shard in the kind of trust environment we're considering is one in which just a single validator appears, or a single party or agent appears as hundreds of validators. So to the unsuspecting or unwitting client, they look at the network and they go, oh, look at all these validators. This must be a highly secure network. When in fact, it's not a secure network at all. Because there's only one agent behind all those validators. And so obviously in circumstances like that, it's quite easy for all of those validators to collude on a double spin that would rip off other shards, right? So that's why you have to really carefully consider the security model in when you start looking at sharding. All of the sharding work that Vlad, for example, has done is all making a strong assumption that you don't have that kind of collusion happening. And I don't know why that assumption is justified. As I just mentioned, it's quite easy to take place, especially in Casper.
Well, I consider a trust model where you're basically only believing validators that you trust. And in the trust model, a single failure, you lose trust, and so there's motivation to be honest. Now, if there's a collusion going on, I don't know how you know that. It could eventually, the most trustworthy bank could eventually screw you, whatever. But you have a trust model that distributes your trust in a diversified manner.
Well, but I mean, the point of Bitcoin is that validators don't trust each other.
Right. Well, that's the thing, and it gets back to, is it possible?
Right. So this is what I'm saying. Is obviously Bitcoin shows that it's possible. But they don't. But Bitcoin is not sharded. Bitcoin is not sharded, right? So Bitcoin has effectively one address space. And what you're interested in is the relationship between two different address spaces. So that's that's the real issue, is whether or not one network is colluding to rip off another network.
Oh, when you give autonomy to your shards, in essence, you're allowing them to work against you.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and so it's a trade-off of security versus speed. That's the trade-off.
Yeah, but also decentralizing, I believe, can help and enable relative truth. I mean, we have a node, can only trust itself and can operate as a that, and trustworthy contracting with other nodes. In an evolutionary environment where, yes, the protection, the security, and the attacks will grow together.
That's correct. There you go. That's exactly right. That's the way to think about it. The security and the attacks grow together. Absolutely.
But what do you think about local time in a node? Is there a place for that in determining finalization, or is the
well, we have local time, right? So that's the beauty of the way we've designed the system, is that the COM events that a particular process has seen, that's its clock.
So we know. So do our justifications include local time for the?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The justifications are precisely the record of local time.
Cool.
All right. Well, that's all I got. Unless anyone else has any other updates on sort of what's going on with
What
Casper research.
what does the future of Casper in terms of our chain's roadmap look like going into next year?
Oh, going into next year?
Yeah, you mentioned some of the things that you're working on right now, but what do you envision the roadmap being for Casper in the next maybe 2 quarters? Like, what can we expect, I guess?
Well, I mean, most of it is just shoring up everything that we've done, and then in the next 2 quarters, for me, what I really want to focus on, apart from just making sure that we don't have any disasters because we didn't spot something, is they go hand in hand, is getting getting it all written down in a format that it can be peer reviewed. So essentially, it's been the work that we've done has been peer reviewed by our developers and by our extended sort of technical community, but not by the wider technical community. And there's lots and lots of fun results there that we want to get in front of a wider technical community. Butler Lamson, the skeptical community, the Butler Lamsons and the oh God, I'm blanking on his name, TLA guy, the Leslie Lamports of the world. We want them to, those kinds of people to take a look at the results and criticize them, from their perspective. But at this point, that we'll have enough proof in terms of a running network and in terms of a mathematical presentation that it will be worthy of that kind of attention. I mean, you have to understand the thing that has been very frustrating to me is various members of the blockchain community have effectively eschewed that kind of peer review. I know, for example, Vlad is so disenchanted, and in many ways, rightly so, with the peer review process. Like he's actually, one of his motivations for building blockchain is to be able to build a decent peer review system, because the existing peer review system is political, not technical in many respects. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try. That you shouldn't keep trying to get engagement within that community. So that's something that I feel is really, really important as a part of the overall documentation effort, which is a part of shoring up the overall offering. So next 2 quarters is essentially a kind of consolidation effort from my perspective.
Got it.
Yeah. All right. Unless there are any other questions, I'm going to hop off and get ready for stand-up.
Can you just say a few words about this weighted grammar over justification that you mentioned?
So what about justification?
You mentioned weighted grammar over justification or something.
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry, I didn't hear the term.
I'm not sure how this should look like, and maybe you can say a few words.
So effectively, just forget about the weights. Just think of a grammar, right? So a grammar that specifies what are legal justifications is telling you properties that you're interested in before you're willing to take an action, such as form a block. And it could be other kinds of actions, right? So for example, you can do it on the fairness side, on the receiver side, where you're prioritizing different blocks. So you could say, you know, these blocks are more interesting than others if they have this shape. So, so the key insight is properties equal grammars. And that should hopefully light bulbs are going off now. And then the weights really just have to do with the stake weighting.
Yeah.
So you're decorating the grammars. You're decorating productions with stake weights.
But we don't want to expose directly to grammar, right? We want to be somehow general.
You don't want to do what?
I mean, if we specify directly the stakes, I'm just, I'm not sure. Can we represent this in some kind of, you know, how many stakes you have?
No, that's it. We're not. What you're doing is you're saying that a production that has a particular relative weight is preferred. So think about constructing a fuzzer, right? So a fuzzer, if you can think of a fuzzer in terms of a grammar, right? And the way you dial weights on particular productions is going to give you different likelihood or occurrences of particular forms. Hang on a second. Sorry. Okay, sweetie, it's time to get up. You get up. Yeah, it is.
What time is it?
It's almost 8.
Yeah, I know.
So I need to get you over there.
I have alarm set.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I've got to get my daughter someplace. Come on, guys. Let's go.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Ciao for now.
Bye-bye.
See you guys. Thanks.